here. So I'm Jamieson. I'm a geology consultant with Datamine. The products I specialize with are Studio RM, Ore Controller, and Studio Mapper. It's great to see some familiar names among the attendees. I hope everybody is well today. And so today's webinar will be plotting like a pro. A very bold promise. I hope it lives up to it. But basically, the goal of today is not an exhaustive or completely comprehensive look at plotting in Studio, but just how we can make a quality professional looking plot easily and repeatably. So the goals of what I'll be showing you today is to make a nice looking plot, how we can easily print that, batch print it along a series of sections, be they drill sections, pit levels, underground levels, and how we can easily make it reproducible by saving everything we do to a template which can be recalled later. So you only go through the ordeal of configuring everything once, and then it's easy to bring it back. Next slide, Rebecca. Thank you. Okay, so, I'm sure many of you are familiar with our company, Datamine. Most of you probably use Studio RM as one of your bread and butter packages. But Datamine is, a mine to mill software company. We've got packages for all along the mining value chain. And obviously, I belong to the Geology suites. And among the softwares, you'll see there Studio Mapper, our underground mapping package, Ore Controller, our open pit grade control software, and Studio RM, which needs no further introduction. But then we've got planning softwares, production softwares, lab softwares for keeping track of your samples, and also softwares in the sustainability space as well. So, I forget the acronym that I'm thinking of, but yeah, we've got softwares in that space as well. Okay, and so without any further ado, I will share my screen and launch into it. So I've got a very basic data set loaded here. This is just the typical training data set that we use. Some of you, if you've attended the training, then you've probably worked with this data set. And so the example that I'll be running today, you can see we've got some drill holes loaded. We've got a block model. We've got a pit shell. We've got a surface topo, and I've created a number of sections along those drill lines as well. So you can just see me jump along them at the moment. And so the goal will be to produce a plot sheet for a cross section along each of those sections that you can see there. So to get into our plotting view, it's a little bit different in the latest versions. The plot button has moved. It's now under reports, presents, and plot view. You'll see the version I'm using is 2.2, you may have noticed. 2.2 was actually just dropped yesterday. It is now available for everybody to download. But that plot button has moved since version 2.0. And so I'll go plot view. Now we've got 2D overlays and 3D overlays. 3D overlays have been around for a few versions now. Formatting 3D overlays is just like formatting overlays in the 3D window here. It's exactly the same. One might say it's a little bit easier than 2D overlays, but the 2D overlays work better if you're looking to print a batch of sections to PDF. And so 2D overlays will be the one that I use today. So I'll go OK. You'll see it's brought me into the plot window. It's just replicated all my data from the 3D window. And so basically now we'll go through the process of formatting all of this data so that it looks nice. Putting a number of plot elements in. Every good plot or map needs a title box, legend, scale bar, north arrow, all of that stuff. We can also bring additional information into our plots. So besides the 3D data you see here, I can import a table of data. So any Datamine file that you've got, you can display alongside your plot. And so as an example today, I'll use a table of drill intercepts with grade. Okay, and so when we're in the plot view, you'll see we've got a couple of additional ribbons up the top. We've got a new manage ribbon, which contains all of our functions for basically formatting the plot, bringing in additional plot items, setting up the drawing order, so what's going to appear over other things, adjusting the page size. And so the very first thing I do will be to adjust the page size to what I want, because that will control how everything else gets scaled. So, you know, we've got A4, A3, all the way up to A0. When you are selecting your page size, just be aware that when it does come to print it, either to a PDF or, you know, through a printer or a plotter, not all printer drivers support all the page sizes. So I believe Microsoft Print to PDF won't go any larger than A3, and so you may want a different printer driver if you want to print to an A0 PDF, for example. For this demonstration, I'll just use A3. You know, it might be a typical poster size that you'll put on the wall. If you're going to be printing to a custom paper size, then you can set custom sizes through here as well. Of course, you want to choose whether you're going to be using a portrait or a landscape orientation as well. I'll stick with landscape. And OK. When you change the paper size, it will ask you if you want to rescale all your plot items. So it will attempt to, you know, fit everything to the paper size better. I'll say yes. And there we go. So now I'm within a 3D paper size. The next thing I'm going to do is go into the View tab. It looks a little bit different here than it does in the 3D window. And so first thing I'm going to do here is to adjust the scale. So View, Scale, uncheck the lock button, and then you can set the scale to something you think will work. I'm going to go with 1 to 1500 because I think that'll work pretty well. You can tap inside the plot view here and use the scroll wheel to zoom. That will also change the scale, but I want it at a nice even 1500. Now for changing the view in the plot window here, you can use Shift right click to pan, Shift left click to spin. So those controls are just the same as they are in the 3D window. Once upon a time, you had to use these buttons up here to pan around and zoom. That's no longer the case. It's a little bit easier now. Now, I've got a section table. I want to obviously turn this into a cross section along the section definitions that I've already created. So to do that, I've got my properties window on the right-hand side anchored here. And I can use that properties window to adjust a lot of the formatting in my plot here. So in properties, I'll go to sections table, and you'll see table name, section def. So that is the section definition file that I have loaded into memory. And I'm going to be using that sections table for my view. If I want to introduce clipping, I'll go view, clip, outside. And now that's giving me a section view. I want to align my view perpendicular to the section. So I'm going to go properties, view direction, align with section, perpendicular. And now I'm looking in cross-section view. While you're in cross-section view, you can still pan about, but you can no longer use the spin command. Okay, so now I've got my viewpoint set as I want it. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just change the extents so that they occupy a little bit more of the page. So to do that, we go Manage and Layout Mode. In Layout Mode, we've got the little tabs in the corners of each of our plot items, and we can click and drag them to expand. Alternatively, in the Properties window, we can actually work in terms of millimeters on the page. So if you know how big an A3 piece of paper is, then you can kind of use that knowledge to position everything on the page so that it looks nice. So for example, under Properties, Position, X, I'm going to have a little border of 10 millimeters. You can see that's changed. A Y border of 10 millimeters. So that should move it up. And in terms of width and height, I've done my research, and so I know exactly what I want these to be. I'm going to make it 277 wide. Oh, sorry, I got my measurements about wrong. Width, I want 340. And height, I want 277. So using the dimensions of A3, I've adjusted that so that I've still got a 10 mil border on the bottom to make it even with the top. You'll notice that I've left a bit of space on the right-hand side here, and that's because I'm going to insert a table in that space. So that's the next thing I'll do. I'm going to go to Manage, Plot Item, Table, and I'm going to select the intersections table that I've got loaded into memory. So this is just replicating the Datamine file table that it's come from. And so again, in layout mode, I'll drag that over to where I want it to be, roughly. I actually know exactly what I want the dimensions to be. And so I'll go into the properties. I'm going to put it for X, 350 mil, which lines it up nicely against that window. Y, I'm going to make it 10, so there's a 10 mil margin at the top, and the width will be 60 to leave a 10 mil margin on the right, and the height will be 277 to leave a margin on the bottom. And so in this intersections table, all it is showing some of the significant intercepts from the drilling here. You'll see I've got hole ID, from, length, and average grade. Now, obviously, I'll want to format this table a little bit more nicely. And so for each of those different cells, we can control their dimensions by clicking and dragging on the little tabs too. So I think that looks a little bit better. Okay. Now I'll format this table a little bit more nicely. We can adjust, where the text appears in the cells, how many rows appear, the font, all of that jazz. To do that, we just need to double tap inside the table, and we've got all the formatting options here. So you can choose title row, turn it off, turn it on, change the formatting. So I won't use the default font. I'll modify that. I'll make the text 12 points. I'll put that in the center, in the middle of the cell. That looks a little bit nicer. Again, I'll adjust that once I'm done. Same for the headings. So we can turn the headings off, turn the headings on, format them, change the font size. I'll make that 10. Put it in the center of each cell, in the middle. Okay. And now we've got our length column and our grade column. so data rows. Got 10 rows at the moment. I've got a lot more rows in that table. I'm going to dial that up to 21. You can see more data has appeared. You can turn frame off, on. That's just the border around it, the internal grid, all of that. You can change that formatting. Okay, and so to change the formatting in each of the cells individually, we've got columns, whole ID, from, length, and grade. So for each of these columns, we pick the column and go format. And so all I'm going to change is the text formatting. So for my whole ID, I'm going to make that black. That's all I'll change there. Might make the text a little bit smaller. 8 points. Apply. And there we go. That'll do. I'm going to do the same thing for from. It's a little bit repetitive, this bit, but again, we only have to do it once, and then we save it to a template. So my from values, I'm just going to change the decimal places. I only want 1 decimal place there. That looks a little bit better. For my lengths, format, rinse, and repeat. Again, 1 decimal place will do the trick. And for my grades, and 2 decimal places this time. Now, for the grades, for example, you could even color them according to a legend. If I go pick my legend, AU, column, AU, and that will then even color those labels according to the legend that I've got. So now I've formatted everything to how I want it in terms of the cells and the text. I'll just shuffle those columns around a little bit so that their widths are a bit more appropriate. And the heights up here. And that looks a little bit more suitable. Yeah, these are just the intersections, not just for the section, but for all of the drill holes. So once I've adjusted that, I'm going to come and format all the overlays in the plot window here. I'll turn my topo on. And so to format the overlays, we just go to the Sheets window. Normally, you'll use the Sheets window for formatting items in the 3D, but you'll see we've got plots here. We've got our from 3D plot that we've created. We've got the projection, and then we've got our actual overlays. So to edit the overlays, I'll begin with my grid. So this is much like the grid formatting in the 3D window. I'll change that to lines. I'll set that to fixed intervals for the grid lines of 50 by 50 by 50. All we can see are the northings and the elevations anyway, so I could even turn off the eastings. I'll have a major line every 2. I'll put labels just on the left and on the bottom. I'll position those labels inside the border, keep them horizontal. I only want them on major lines, and let's see how that looks. Beautiful. All right. We've got a border. We can turn border off, turn border on, change the grid color. I might change that to gray so it's a little less conspicuous. Okay. Now I'll go to more line formatting. So we can adjust, the line style, weight, and intensity, all of that jazz. And what I'll do here, they're already gray. I'll just change the major line weight to 20. I'll make the border 100 to make it a little thicker. And minor line intensity, I'll just reduce that to 10. Again, just to make them a little bit more obvious, so they're not dominating the data that I've got there. All right. Okay, so there's my grid setup. Now I'll format the rest of the overlays. So I just come to Sheets, double tap on one of the overlays, and from this format display window here, we can pick all of them and format them from here. So I'll begin with my drill holes. And you'll see here that the 2D formatting is a little bit different from the 3D formatting you may be familiar with from Sheets. Remember, we did have the option to make 3D overlays at the beginning, but I've gone with 2D. And so here, you can adjust how you want your drill holes to appear. You know, we've got points. They'll just appear as the sample points. Drill holes, I'll keep them as drill holes. We go across to the drill holes tab to format them, and we go format. And so in here, we can format lines and symbols. So holes on section will appear solid. When they pass off the section, they'll appear as dotted lines. I might increase the width to about 3. Let's go 4. Make it a little more obvious. There we go. Symbols, collar, end of hole, you can adjust all of that. I might change my collar symbol a little bit. There we go. Section, plane, entry point, exit point, all of that. I won't bother there. I'll go across to labels. So I will include a collar label. So that's ticked on. It's got BHID. I'll configure that. We can give it a bit of a rotation. I think that makes it look a little neater. And I'll offset it above the actual collar point as well. So it looks a little bit cleaner. I might need to increase the font size so we can actually see that. So we've got the font option for all of our labels down here. So we go fonts. I'll make that size 10. That looks a little better. And I'll change the font color to black. Yeah, now they're a bit more visible. And the rotation, I'll make that 270. No, not quite what I was after. I'll keep that with 330. There we go. So you can just see when they're tilted, they're not quite overlapping each other as much. Or I could even make that 60. And then they'll be vertical. Okay, I can put depth intervals on there as well. So tick that on. I can actually show the depth labels and configure that. I'll keep them perpendicular, offset them a little bit, and now you can see those labels as well. All of the labels share the same font formatting, so you can't sort of change the size of the depth markers as well as the whole IDs, but I might just bring them all down a little bit. There, that looks a bit cleaner. Remember, when you're looking at this, this actually represents a 3D piece of paper. And so what looks like a good font size when you're looking at this screen, you know, you can probably make it a little bit smaller and you'll still be able to see it very legibly on an A3 piece of paper. Okay. And lastly, I want to color my drill holes. So I'll come across to color using legend, pick my legend and the attribute and apply. Okay. And now you can see my drill traces are more nicely colored. Now I'll move on to, oh, sorry, before I move on, we can save the formatting for these plot items as a template as well. So we can go to the templates tab. You'll see I've actually got a few set up in preparation, but we just go add, give it a name. I'll call this one DH trace 1. pick the type of data it's for. There you'll see I've got DH trace 1. And then in overlays, come back to the overlays tab and pick the drill holes. We've got a template option down here. So you can pick a template from the drop down. Not sure where my DH trace 1 has gone because it thinks it's a block model. That's why. All right. Okay. There we go. So in the overlays options, under the templates drop down, you can pick the templates that you've created. So I've got DH trace, and I'll write that formatting to the template. So I'll go update template. Yes. And now the formatting is in that template. We can go and save those templates. So we come back to templates, pick my DH trace, go export, pick a file to save it to or create a new file. You'll see it's being saved as this TPL file type. So all the TPL files are plot templates, and save. And now I can import that template to another project, or, it's available for future use for others. It makes everything repeatable. Just as an example, under my templates, I've got a points template as well. So if I want to view my plot my drill holes as points, I'll pick the template, go apply, and apply, and now they're just as points for the samples. That opens up a few additional tabs up here. So we can change the point color to my legend. So now they're nice and colorful. We can change the symbols. So I can even size them according to my legend. Maybe that legend doesn't have the sizes in it. Not a problem. Okay. Labels. So if you wanted to put grade labels on there, we go new to add a new label. Oh, sorry, no, we just go reset. Pick the column the label is for, gold. So now we've got this label. To format that, we can go fonts. I might make the size 5 so that they're not clogging up the screen. Position, I'll put it on the right-hand side of the trace and just offset it horizontally a bit, maybe by 2 points. I'm going to label all points. I'll make them perpendicular to the drill trace and go OK. And now if I zoom, well, they're easy to see. Probably could have made them a little bit smaller. So labels, fonts. I can run with 33.3 and apply. Oh, don't know why that's defaulting to 33. Maybe if I just try 8. Okay, I won't worry about that too much. It's always the danger of doing trying to do something while presenting at the same time. I might just, I'll leave them the way they are. We can go style, and then we just click on the label in there. And we can apply a legend to color it with. You can adjust the alignment and all of that. And now they're colorful as well. Just for the sake of cleanliness, I might turn those labels off though. So I'll just go delete to turn that one off. Okay, and I might bring back my DH trace template as well. There we go. So now I'll do the same with the block model. Go into the block model properties, and that's never good when you're doing a live demonstration. Sorry for that, everybody. Fire it back up. Okay, now I'm going to have to do all of that again, but to help myself, I'm actually just going to load everything from a predefined template, which is kind of something I was planning on showing later. And so to load a template, we can just go plots, right-click on a plot tab at the bottom, and go new plot sheet from template. Just let me browse to my working folder. Now, sorry, I need to load everything back into 3D. 2 moments, everybody. So I've got my intersections table. I've got my block model. I've got my drill holes. And I've got my pit shell and topo. Don't need to reformat everything in 3D. I just go to, well, the other way to do it is you can go sheets, see the little plots option, right click on that, go new plot sheet from template, pick your template. And what we do now is we just need to, so the template stores all of the data that we had loaded and formatted when we made the template. When we want to reuse that template, we may have some different data loaded. And so what we do here is we just pick the data we have loaded from the list here to map it to the data that's stored in the plot template. So for the block model I had loaded, for example, I just map that to my current block model. Same for the intersections table, the pit shell, the section definition, which I didn't bring back in. Go. Map everything. And we should be good to go. So you'll see it's showing you how everything will appear according to the template. All right. This is one I had ready to go. So this is what I wanted it to look like when I was done. And what I might do is I'll just bring it back to, so when we come back into the template, all we need to do is pick a section. So we go manage, view, next, and that will jump us to a section. You can see all my data. Pick the scale. Unfortunately, the template doesn't save the scale. And recenter everything. And there we go. So that's how easy it is to, reuse a template. I don't need to reformat everything. I'll just quickly finish off what I was doing with the formatting. So I had my block model properties. You'll see it's already pre-formatted as points. And so in here, we can show that as blocks. We can display it as an intersection. I'll leave it as intersection. We can go across to color. I'll color that according to the grade legend that I want. There we go. You can adjust the cell scaling as well with shrink cells. So, I can make the cells a little bit bigger, or I can make them a little bit smaller, depending on how you want it to appear. I think 2 works pretty well. And we've got all of our labeling options for the block model too. We've got the wireframes, and all I've done with them is set them to intersection. You can choose 3D rendering and display them as actual wireframes. But I think it looks a little bit cleaner if we just display that as an intersection. Okay. And so that's by and large the formatting. Next, what I'll do is I'll just quickly, being mindful of the time now, just quickly remove the title box so I can put another one in, and the legend, and the scale bar. All right, so we can add all of those plot items under manage, plot item, title box, and I'll just go okay, nothing to change there. And I'll just drag that over to where I want it in the top right corner. And so we can edit each of the cells. So you can double tap in a cell to change the fonts, change the alignments. This actually looks pretty good, although I might increase the font size a little bit. I'll dial that up to 12 and I'll make it bold. Okay. And I can resize each of the cells by just clicking and dragging. That's a little bit better. If you want to change the cell contents, then you need to left click on a cell so that it becomes shaded, and then right click, go title box, edit cell contents, and we can choose from a number of things to fill that cell with. By default, it shows the projection. If you just want it to be user entered text, you can pick static. For example, I'll just name it Datamine plotting webinar. And then that will appear in the cell. I'll pick the next one. Edit cell contents. And for this one, I'll pick the section description, and I want it to show the easting. And I'll go include label. And so now it's actually telling us, so that just reverted back. Include label, apply. Okay, there we go. So now you can see it says section easting and then the actual coordinates of the section. And I'll change the font by double tapping in there. I might make that 10, put it in the middle, and okay. I've got scale here. That's good. I've got the date this plot was made. And for the last one, I might make it who made the plot. And so I'll just right click in there, edit cell contents, user, username, okay, made by me. You can do all sorts of other things with this. For example, if I tap in a cell, right click and go title box, you can split cells up into additional rows, additional columns. You can make it look however you want it to look. So you can go split cells into columns too. So now I've got 2 columns there. I might make one of them edit cell contents, static, and I'll just say, this is pit number 1, for example. You can change the borders of each of them. So I can right click on that title box, change cell borders, right border, turn off. And I can remove the left border of this one, for example. So change cell borders, left, off. And that creates the effect of merging those cells together. Okay, so there's my title box. I'll add a legend. So we go manage, plot item, legend. Pick the legend you want to display. I'll go with, there we go. We'll go fonts. So we've got maximum font size and minimum font size. This is just because as we rescale the legend box, the font size can then move between the range that we've specified here. So there'll be a maximum of 10 points and a minimum of 8 points as I rescale that legend box. Okay, so we'll resize that. There we go. Now that might even look a little bit big when it prints it off, but it looks nice and obvious here. All right. I'll add a scale bar. And so we can pick, the scale bar intervals, the scale bar color, the height and the width. I might change that to 90. And height can stay as 10. And I'll just drag that out a little bit so that it goes out to a nice even 100. And I'll position that down in the bottom right corner. And so there's my scale bar. By default, when you open up the plot, it comes with a north arrow. To change the north arrow, you can just double tap on it, change the style. I personally like the little hand pointing north. And you can change, make it bold, change the labels, the color, all of that. But I think the default's pretty good there. You can add an image. So if you want to include the logo of your company, for example, you can just go manage, insert, plot item, image, and then browse for the picture, bring it in, reposition it, rescale it, and all of that. Okay. And so this is really what I was after. I think this looks all pretty nice now. I've got the table for my drill intersections, title box, legend, scale bar, north arrow, little corporate logo. All of my data's formatted well, scaled properly. And so the last steps, well, firstly, so if I go to the View tab, and should have my section, there we go, just tap in there. I can skip along the sections that I've got made and view each of them. You'll notice that in this template that I prepared, I've actually got little downhole columns added on my drill holes as well to show an additional grade, for example. Again, that's just in the formatting options for the drill holes. Being time conscious, I don't want to go into too much detail though, but it's just an example of the things that you can do in the plots here. So we can skip through, look at each of the sections that we've prepared. And the final steps are to save that to a template. To do that, we just go manage, save to, template, and it's going to be saved as this .dmtpl file type. I'll name this webinar.dmtpl, save, and I'll look in, well, we've seen how we can then import that template. So, next time we can just pick the template, map your data, and easily reproduce, a new bench template, for example. And lastly, we want to print all of these off along sections. So I'll go to File, Print. I'll just use Print's PDF that supports A3. Always make sure you've got the correct orientation and the correct page size. And under print range, I'm going to pick pages. You'll see it has 1 to 8. Okay. And I'll just call that webinar.pdf. It'll take a few moments. And now if I open that up, there's my webinar.pdf. And there's my plot printed out. I can scroll down and you'll see it's printed them along each section. The reason I used 2D overlays for this demonstration today is that the 3D overlays don't work as well for batch printing along sections, just because of the way the 3D overlays work. With the 2D overlays, it'll print a slice of your block model and your wireframes along every section. Okay. And that's really it. So I hope everybody learnt a little something about plotting today. I hope it lives up to the promise, plotting like a pro.